the camera off.
Oh, started.
Welcome to the Luke and Jake Movie Podcast.
It's brand new. It's a whole new thing
This
we're
is
doing.
brand new.
We've never done anything quite like this before.
Brand new, spanking new.
It's so weird. Like, it's weird how nervous I
Yeah,
was
we're both
feeling
we're
leading
both
up to
feeling
4
pretty nervous.
p.m.
and we usually don't get nervous about things like this.
We were just talking, probably the last time we were nervous, we were 12 years old together at this weird Christian competition. You sang Fiddler on the Roof,
If I were a rich man,
and I did a dramatic telling of the 10 Commandments.
and I won money. I didn't even know you could win money.
And I remember you bought, I wanted to buy like a camera or something, and you bought video games. And I always hated you for that.
Probably like Lord of the Rings Third Age or something.
Welcome!
Welcome.
To the first ever live streamed video stream.
The Luke and
HD.
Jake, the Luke and Jake Movie Podcast.
That's Luke.
That's Jake. And
Wow.
usually we always did our podcast on just on SoundCloud or on iTunes. And for all our listeners out there, this is still going to be on SoundCloud and iTunes, but
Yes.
we decided to add a new element for like this foreseeable future.
So we thought, let's make it a little more exciting.
Yeah.
YouTube allows you to stream live, and here we are
Here we are live.
in my apartment. You get to see us live.
You get to see it because people were begging. Can we see your faces? Listening isn't enough. We need to see.
Please.
So
Please.
we're giving the people what they want, which is this. A whole lot of this.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
We have a great episode in store
Yeah.
for you guys.
Yeah, for people who haven't listened or don't know what we do, Jake and I, we've been friends forever, and whenever we would hang out, we just talk about movies.
It would normally go like this. Like, we would always want to watch a movie.
Yeah.
Like, some people, they watch sports or they go outside or interact with other human beings.
We don't like any of that.
None of that. So what we would do is, if we weren't going to the movie theater, we'd be hanging out at each other's houses, and we would sit and we would look at our shelves of DVDs.
Like this.
There's one shelf of
Yeah.
DVDs here. We would stare at it, and we would just talk about all the DVDs. Like, oh my gosh, Children of Men, that movie is so amazing. Remember that part? Blood Diamond. I mean, how like he disappeared into that character.
Yeah.
Like, we would just,
Yeah.
and it would take like an hour of that before we'd finally pick a movie
Exactly.
to watch.
And the conversations were just so great that we decided people should listen to these.
We couldn't keep it to ourselves. There is a level of vanity involved in this, isn't there?
I think all podcasts have
Like,
a level of vanity.
you have to see this. You have to listen to us.
Yeah. Well, you don't have to. Clearly, a lot of
But
people.
please.
Yeah, but as Jake said, we do have a fantastic episode today, dealing with so many things. So we haven't done a podcast in, I would say, few months.
Yeah, we had over the summer we had a bit of a hiatus, and then we
Yeah.
had what we called a comeback, which was really like 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah.
And we had recorded another 2 or 3, which will now be the lost episodes.
Yeah. Released on the
We'll put that on the
DVD.
DVD. Yeah. DVD,
Yeah.
Blu-ray, digital copy on
Yeah.
iTunes now. We had a bunch of episodes like that, but like then I was too late to putting them up. I was doing other kinds of work. I was busy.
And then they get old.
And then they get old. And what's the point of releasing today an episode where we are reviewing some movie from the summer? So we thought this is a way that we can start brand new and
Yeah.
fresh, and it will always be on top. It will always be current. It'll always be current because look, it's live right now.
And what's awesome is through I think through this way, if people are tuning in live, they can tweet at us, they can comment actually on the YouTube sidebar.
Yeah, that's
and
you,
talk to
Nate.
us.
Nate just texted me. I'm watching you. Comment. Send us
Yeah.
your questions, your thoughts.
Questions, thoughts.
Troll
we
us.
Want,
Go ahead.
we want to hear from people, and we want to have a conversation about movies with other people.
With
So-
that being said,
Yeah, let's start.
Luke,
So-
what have you been watching this week?
What have I been watching? What haven't I been watching is the question, which is a lot of things. But what I have been watching, this week I decided I like once every few months I feel this urge to watch The Godfather.
Uncontrollable
This
desire.
uncontrollable desire to watch The Godfather, which, as most people know, is one of the most acclaimed movies of all time. So
It's amazing.
it's been like, I would say, a solid like 8 months, I'd say, since I've seen them. So yeah, watch the first one and then you can't help but watch the second one
You gotta.
the day after. So yeah, watch those. I could go on forever. They are perfect. They're so good, the first and second.
I love them.
Watch The Godfather. What else? I went to see Fantastic Beasts, but we'll talk about that later. I binge watched The Crown on Netflix. Me and Jessica.
Which I'll be doing shortly
Yeah,
as well.
Jessica and I. It's a Netflix original. I'll talk about more about The Crown in a little bit. And then yesterday, for the first time, I watched the movie Heat, directed by Michael Mann, starring Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. My friend Max loves it. So I was like,
raves about it.
and I'm one of my favorite movies of all time is The Dark Knight, which was heavily influenced by this movie, and you can
Heavily.
see it from the get go. I'm like,
Visual look,
blue, the
score,
blue look, the score,
the pacing.
the pacing, just the way how there is a sort of quote unquote interrogation scene before the final act between the two main
Oh
characters.
yeah, there's that sort of face
There's
off.
just so many
It's
things
huge.
that which I find cool. It's not my favorite movie, but it's pretty good. Oh, what did Nate say? Predicting Jacob hated Fantastic Beasts.
That's a pretty good prediction. Well, we'll get there. Don't get ahead of yourself.
What have you been watching?
I've been watching a ridiculous amount of things, man. Because right now I'm in like video editing the zone. Like
Yeah.
all I do every day is edit videos. So I'll have like my editing going on here, and then when I hit a break, I'll already have a movie like up ready to watch. And so yeah,
Jake doesn't get out much.
only to go to the movie theater down the street.
Yeah.
Which I'll talk about. I rewatched recently Band of Brothers, which if you don't know, is Steven Spielberg, Tom Hanks executive produced this amazing miniseries
On
about
HBO.
Easy Company through HBO about Easy Company, which was part of the 501st Airborne. I think that's what it was.
Easy Company had a hard time.
It was like they had the most ridiculous hard time in the war in Europe, and it's a 10-part series about these young men who go to war, and it has like every young actor ever.
Oh yeah.
Michael Fassbender, Tom Hardy, James McAvoy, Damian Lewis,
Colin Hanks.
Hanks.
David Schwimmer's in it.
Is that the guy who plays Moriarty in
Ross.
Sherlock?
No, Ross.
Oh yeah, he's in
He's
it.
funny.
The guy who plays Moriarty in Sherlock is in it too.
Oh.
Just a huge amount of these young actors. The Thing is brilliant. But I'm not here to review that. But
Yeah.
other things, I've seen now Arrival in theaters 3 times.
You saw it 3 times?
I've seen it 3
Oh, I
times
saw it
now.
once. We'll
I've
talk
seen it-
about Arrival too.
Well, I will talk about. Let's talk about it now. I mean,
Okay.
we saw it. I saw it at TIFF, so I knew
Oh,
what I was
yeah,
in
yeah.
for going. Well, so I've seen it 4 times. I knew what I was in for going into. 3 times. What I was going in to see the second time, and no joke, it was better the second time. When I saw it the third time, it was better the third time.
Really? So I came into it knowing Jake and our friend Max were like, this was the best movie at TIFF. And me and Max saw La La Land together, and he said Arrival's better. So I went in with huge expectations,
Mm.
and I was not disappointed at all. One of the best sci-fis I've seen since Looper, if you would consider Looper a sci-fi.
Yeah. It's in
It,
that category.
it is just amazing. I found the twist at the end and the just Amy Adams' performance and the way they set it up, how they take their time and how real it is.
Yes.
I love how much they take their time.
It's
It's
just like Contagion. It's like
Yeah.
one of those movies that you're watching. You're like, that's exactly what would happen.
yes,
100% that would happen.
Exactly.
Alien showed up. This is exactly how we would
Yeah.
react.
And I know people would go, "Oh my gosh!" Like when I told Jessica we're going to see it, she was like, "Another space movie, another alien movie," but she loved it, and
Yeah.
we were both like that. I can't wait to see it again. That is definitely a movie to rewatch, and for all you
Yes.
sci-fi fans out there, this is a must see.
It's an intelligent movie, and Amy Adams knocks it out of the park. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That director, Dennis Villeneuve,
From Quebec, Canadian.
he's
awesome.
directed some incredible stuff, including Sicario.
Prisoners, which is one
Prisoners.
of my favorite movies ever.
The guy is on fire.
Yeah.
And his tone and his feeling for movies.
And
he's so
he's-
good at developing.
And
a
he's doing the
tone.
new Blade Runner,
oh,
which is crazy.
whew.
So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
Yeah.
I also saw with Amy Adams. I saw Nocturnal Animals.
how was that?
It was really good. I mean, it's pretty intense. Again, it's a movie where the tone is a big deal. Tom Ford directed it. He also did A Single Man with Colin Firth.
Yeah.
And he's just really good at setting a tone. Like there's this tension throughout the whole movie. Like I read one review that said like, God help us if Tom Ford decides to make a horror movie one day, because he would be so effective. And that's maybe the only thing about Nocturnal Animals that I feel falls short, is I wish they had gone just a few steps further. It's a movie most people won't see, and it's a movie that's not for most people, but it's a thriller about Amy Adams.
Jake Gyllenhaal, right?
Yeah, with Jake Gyllenhaal, who plays her ex-husband, who sends her a manuscript of a novel that he's written that he's dedicated to her. And it's a story that almost serves as a metaphor for things that actually happened in their relationship. But you're left guessing what really happened, what actually ended up with these characters, where are they going from here? And there's a level of mystery to it that's great, but I just felt like, just give me a little bit more, a little bit more, but still really great. I saw Moonlight, which was also at TIFF. All of these movies, I guess, have been at TIFF. I saw Moonlight, which he's in that one. That is him. I'm confusing. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So
I haven't seen Moonlight, so I don't know. I haven't even seen a trailer.
It's a movie about a young black boy who, through some traumatic circumstances goes through, is starting to question who he is and what that means in an urban environment that's so toxic and difficult, particularly in his home, and how he develops as a human being, and how certain relationships, whether they're severed, and it's really, it's emotional, it's intense, it's very close to you feel really close to all the characters in it. It's well done, and I think it'll get some Oscar love one way or another.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, Idris Elba could get nominated for supporting actor, but his role is pretty small. We'll see.
I may be going to see it tonight, but probably not.
Thanks, Max. I mean, I saw Doctor Strange, which I thought was just fine.
I haven't seen it. I hear the visuals are amazing.
Sure. Yeah.
Don't spoil it for me. Let me guess. No one really dies, and the villain's just okay.
It's Iron Man with magic.
Oh.
But Iron Man's better.
I'll see it at some point.
And I saw Kubo and the Two Strings.
How's that?
It just came out on DVD. Like with these stop frame animation movies, these claymation type movies, this is probably the largest scale of any of that genre ever.
Oh wow.
The scale is really big. The story, and for them to be willing to take the time to move their little animations bit by bit, the story has to be amazing. And these guys are super gifted. But for me, it's a movie that just it falls into that same sort of that was a good animated movie. It didn't wow me, it didn't blow me away. The art is beautiful, but definitely enjoyable. Kids would love it. And there's a lot to it I think that kids would enjoy. So any of you parents watching. So I've been watching a ton of stuff.
Yeah. You know what? I've been finishing up The Sopranos season 4. So that's been taken up. When you dedicate yourself to a show,
it's hard to get away.
It's hard to get away, because especially when you know the show has an ending. That's what I find. So that's why binge watching is so great. It's I know this is 13 episodes, and at the end of the 13 episodes, I will be done and I can move on to something else.
Yeah.
The Sopranos, I know it's 6 seasons.
Yeah.
So I'm I could get this done in a month and then never think about The Sopranos again.
It is exactly what happened to me with Mad Men,
Yeah.
with Fargo season 1 and 2.
Yeah, you just know there's an end point. So reminds me of The Godfather. That's what inspired me to watch The Godfather. I was
I can see why.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right, to Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Stranger Things. Yes, Nate. Stranger Things is good. Great.
Yeah, but we talked. Oh, we didn't put that episode up.
Yeah.
Well, Stranger Things was one of these summer things.
Yeah.
It was Pokemon Go. Did the Olympics happen this summer? Yes. The Pokemon Go, the Olympics, and Stranger Things. That's what this summer was.
Yeah.
And Stranger Things, incredibly well made. Super well made.
Awesome. I can't wait for the second season.
I want to see more. And again, that might be my only complaint, was I wanted to see a little bit more.
They definitely found such a niche market on, and it shows Netflix never releases their ratings or how many viewers on what, but apparently that was the biggest thing that they've ever had.
Totally understand.
Because it's our demographic that is probably consumes Netflix the most,
right?
Young 20s, early 30s. That's our generation wanting to feel nostalgia, thinking about E.T. and Steven Spielberg movies of the.
It really is like a Steven Spielberg television show,
and that's why it works, and people loved it.
Hugely successful. I thought it was good.
Yeah. It's real good. It wasn't my goodness. It's not like when House of Cards season 1 came out and it was this
freaking
is
out.
The best.
Yeah.
It's really good. I think it's totally you should watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would recommend it to anybody.
I would definitely recommend it, but it's not like.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right, on to Fantastic Beasts
Eddie Redmayne
and
and
what
some other actors
Yeah.
are
Eddie
in
and
are in our
Mr. Depp.
oh, but don't talk spoilers.
Yeah.
Into the magical world of Harry
Oh,
Potter.
Colin Farrell. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's in this one too.
You know what? The build-up for this movie didn't really do anything for me. Like the marketing.
The closest,
wasn't-
the closest I got to nostalgic was just hearing the music again.
Yeah. And let me preface, or is it preface?
Preface.
Let me preface this with telling people that I am and was a huge Harry Potter fan.
That's the truth.
Like I read all the books 3 times through. So when people watch this and they're like, oh, well, they aren't actually fans of Harry Potter, that's why they wouldn't necessarily love it. No. I'm a huge fan. Jake read all the books too. It's not like we're approaching Fantastic Beasts with like, oh yeah, we saw those movies years ago. So and I've seen every one of the Harry Potter movies a million times. So that's just a preface.
We went and saw both Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2 at midnight, didn't we?
Yep.
Yeah.
Both of those. Our friends
Yeah.
for the last Harry Potter movie waited in line from noon
To midnight, 12
to
hours.
12 hours. And me and Jake showed up at like 10 p.m.
I think I should have been like, I'm like, oh, I guess
Well,
I should.
I worked
think
all- I
went
worked
till
all
like
day.
8:30.
Yeah, I worked all day, so
But
I
yeah.
could only show up. Anyways,
Second in line.
so that just goes to show what life was like before AVX or any reserve seating.
Oh.
Anyway, so to this movie, why don't you talk about it and then I'll talk about what I thought.
I mean, there are a bunch of things that I liked about the movie. I thought it was interesting to see New York at this time. I love period pieces for that reason. Is there's always this enormous level of detail and care into everything that you're seeing, and I was definitely impressed with seeing New York in this time with this sort of magical feeling to it. I thought Eddie Redmayne did a great job. I thought like I like it too because he's sort of unconventional in that he's shy, he's kind of quiet, he's a little different, and it wasn't like this story where at the end he becomes this great hero. He kind of always was this good guy, and he's being kind of whipped to and fro through this world, but he always has, like from the beginning, he cares so much about people and living things that when it comes to, its finale, which is a pretty personal finale as far as what his role in it is, he's trying to really help somebody. He's not just trying to fight a bad guy. I found that really interesting, and I found that kind of unique, and I thought that was cool. But overall, I felt underwhelmed. Like, with some of the creatures, it's kind of like, okay. Like, I really loved being inside of that suitcase. There's these scenes when he goes down to his suitcase where he has, like, this little zoo of all his creatures, and I thought it was so cool. And I thought there was a lot of imagination, and there was a lot of cool stuff in it. But it kind of, I came out of the experience feeling like I did coming out of Hellboy 2. Which I think we saw in theaters together, which is a sequel in a way, Fantastic Beasts sort of is as well, as we're returning to a franchise. And I was wowed by a lot of the imagination. There were lovable moments, but I didn't feel connected to characters. I didn't really believe the relationships the characters had to one another, particularly at the end. We talked about that briefly before. And overall, I just felt like this movie just squeaks past being, it's a good movie. And I wouldn't tell people on the basis of how I felt of it to not see it. Like, there's some movies that I'm just like, don't waste your time.
Yeah.
But like with this, any Doctor Strange 2, I give it like a 2.75. This movie didn't outright fail, but it didn't really blow me away. Like, I didn't even think it was great. I just thought it was fine.
Yeah.
And there were definitely some weird decisions.
Yeah.
Some weird things. But I will say this. My last thing that I really liked about it was I liked that we learned a little bit more about the Harry Potter universe, particularly when he was talking about, and if you haven't seen the movie, this won't mean anything to you, but we talk about Obscurus.
Yeah.
Is that what they're called? I thought that was so cool.
I think that the Obscurus is really, really cool.
And there's definitely some social commentary
Yep.
about fundamentalism and these really hateful and intense ideologies and rigid ways of
Yep.
thinking that can be torturous to someone's soul. And I liked how they explored that. And I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. For me, I whenever it comes to a prequel or a sequel to a movie I really love, I want to approach the movie without like, I think a lot of Harry Potter fans will let certain things slide because it's in the Harry Potter universe.
Right.
They're like, oh, it's okay, it's Harry Potter, it's amazing, and I'm not like that. So I agree completely with what Jake said. As a diehard Harry Potter fan, who I actually love the Harry Potter movies. I know a lot of people are just like they're okay, but I think especially 6 and the 2 last ones, 7 part 1, 7 part 2, are actually great movies.
Solid.
Yeah, really solid. This one I felt like J.K. Rowling. Is it Rowling or Rowling? J.K. Rowling.
Rowling.
J.K. Rowling.
Rolling.
J.K. Rowling is amazing, right? She created this, but it takes a lot to write a screenplay
Versus a novel.
versus a novel.
It's
And
obviously a
I
very
did
different
find
process.
the pacing and the way the writing was just wasn't strong enough to develop character. The characters I felt are really one-dimensional. It just didn't. Like with the Harry Potter, she had professional screenwriters taking her stories and putting them on screen, and I felt you really created it. Like I would only compare it to the first Harry Potter movie because that had to set up a world.
Yeah.
And the character development in that one is fully developed characters, ideas. With this one, like name me 5 character names from the movie.
Well, there's Eddie Redmayne.
Exactly. Newt. I actually
Newt.
before
I didn't
we did
even know his name.
before
was
we
Newt.
did this, I wrote down Newt. Tina was the girl's name. I didn't even remember her name. The Auror.
I thought
And then her
her sister's name was
is
Tina.
Queenie.
Oh.
See, and then Jacob was the
Oh, I didn't even remember.
yeah.
He with my name.
Yeah, and I know when I leave a movie and I don't remember names like anyone's real name. I know I didn't believe stuff. I didn't believe in, I won't spoil anything, but I didn't believe in any of the love stories. I didn't believe that these characters actually fell for each other.
It felt a little like they just slapped a sticker on at the end.
Yeah,
Like this kinda,
I didn't believe it. Now, on the opposite side of that, there were moments where I was sitting there being like, I love this. I love them chasing this creature. I think it's magical. I love the Harry Potter universe. I love the expansion of it. I am sort of getting sick of movies that are just to set up another movie.
AKA Johnny Depp's entire involvement in this movie.
Yeah,
That was weird.
I do think television has such a it's the reason that this happens a lot, that they're trying to build these franchises, and I think Marvel is the reason for this, that they don't even care about how each movie stands alone. All they care about is the setup to the big movie,
Yeah.
which will be the 5th Fantastic Beast. That being said, I didn't think it's an awful movie. Jess actually hated it more than me.
Your fiance didn't like it at all.
No.
Wow.
And
Be
that was
careful.
shocking for me, but she was bored. There wasn't anything it's not awful. I really like parts of it, and I also wrote down I did feel a little bit kind of like the first Hobbit movie. You know, you're trying to
That's a really good comparison.
you're trying to love it because it's in the world, and I love the location of it. I loved that it was in America, and I like the expansion of the universe. I just still am weary about it. I don't know.
My biggest thing is that I just didn't like any of those side characters.
Yeah.
Like with Harry Potter, Harry's your main guy, but then you like Hermione and
Oh,
Ron
yeah.
and his brothers, and like you there's Draco who's like, oh yeah, Draco. Like there was you have these feelings and ideas towards these characters, and you remember not only their names, but you remember, you know, what you felt like when you were watching.
Yeah.
It was with Fantastic Beasts. I was just like, oh, okay, so they like each other. Okay,
Yeah.
that's all right. So now we're going over here.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, that's kind of cool, but it just never
Yeah.
gripped me. Now I want to see more,
Yeah.
but I'm worried that those side characters aren't going to be interesting. I liked Eddie Redmayne though.
Yeah.
I liked
He's
his,
always
I
good.
liked his character.
And I just want to say one of my, I don't want to call it a pet peeve, but something that doesn't, I just find fans will love the movie as long as, like, even that one scene when Colin Farrell and he mentions Albus Dumbledore's name, and you can feel in the audience, but that doesn't make a great movie.
No.
You know what? I don't think it makes a great movie, and I don't want Fantastic Beasts to just rely on this is a prequel to Harry Potter. So, oh my gosh, we're gonna see young Snape.
Yeah.
We're gonna mention in one scene, oh, Severus was bad this morning. Severus,
Like here's the truth. Name me a prequel franchise that does really well, or any prequel, that's great.
The
Like-
storyline in Godfather 2, that's
But that movie's not a
exactly.
prequel.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So, like, you think that because I think they made the right choice by making it far enough back in time that we're not going to see like
You know
a
what's a good
baby
one?
Harry Potter.
Rise of the Planet of the Apes. So that's really different.
Yeah, that's like that's a
Yeah,
rehash.
that's a restart.
That's
Yeah.
like Casino Royale is not a
Yeah,
prequel, and neither is Batman Begins.
Yeah.
So, but I think, like it endangers itself in being so self-referential.
Star Wars. Don't let us bring up the Star Wars prequels. Star Wars prequels.
There's
go
a
back and
great
rewatch
example.
them.
You're fighting too hard to try and refer to those things, those bits of nostalgia
Yeah.
that you can't actually move forward with it.
Yeah.
And that is
But-
painful.
But honestly, I don't think it's a terrible movie. I do not hate it nearly as much as I despise Finding Dory.
Yeah, you still hate that movie.
I hate that movie.
I think it's just lame, but I liked this one
I'm
more.
worried for my love of Pixar. I tell you.
Let's talk really briefly. Just as a segue from
Yeah.
Pixar, that bizarre Cars 3 teaser trailer.
Yeah.
So
Did
you
anyone?
go ahead.
Yeah. Go to YouTube.
While you're watching this, go ahead on YouTube, search Cars 3 teaser trailer,
Yeah.
and try and make sense of what on earth that is.
It's
Is
just
it
to
going to
get
be
people
like
talking.
Is it going to be like a rehab movie? Like he's going to be injured, and the whole movie's going to be him trying to get his mojo
That's
back?
what it's gonna be. Come on. Have any of Daryl, X-Men First Class. That was a prequel. That was pretty good.
That's a good point.
Yeah. That is a good. What does that say?
But that was also
Dark.
like them trying to just restart the X-Men franchise
Yeah.
like fresh.
Yeah.
But no, there was definitely heavy
Yeah.
prequel aspects to it. And, it
and
was
and,
fine.
and also for
That is a good point.
for Daryl and Nate who are commenting, I want to hear what you guys thought about Fantastic Beasts. Like,
Yeah, we'll bring it up at the
and
we'll
I'm
bring it
trying.
up.
I know people, but I want to hear about people nostalgia side. Nostalgia side.
As it stands as a movie
As it
on
stands
its own.
in a movie, can you walk into? Can a 10-year-old who has never read the books of Harry Potter, doesn't even know the Harry Potter universe, go see Fantastic Beasts and be like,
Well, if you're
this
10
is-
years old.
yeah,
I loved Star Wars Episode 1.
yeah, that's true.
Hardcore.
That's true.
I think but
So,
as
Screw everything I just said.
See, we can't edit this.
Yeah.
We talked about that. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't ever heavily edit our podcast.
No.
But there were definitely moments we'd be like, just cut that part.
Yeah, I cut it because we don't know what we're talking about. We're no experts, but
We
I'm
just like
just
talking about
saying it was not an incredible movie, but it's not a bad movie.
I agree.
Okay, moving on.
This is really the main topic of today's
Yeah.
episode. We want to talk, especially in a time right now where I feel like there's a lot of people with it's uncertain times. There's a lot of hate politically, and
Yeah.
that's causing a lot of issues for I know people personally. Like even in my life, stuff that's been going on. That I know that it can be a difficult time for people. That sometimes I think people might say, well, like, what the heck? Like, what's the point of a movie? What's so great about
Yeah.
a movie or important about a movie in times like this? But I would say that in times like this is when things like movies are the most important.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about it. Why are movies
Yeah.
important?
And like even with all that's going on in the world right now, why people could look at this podcast and be like, why are you talking about movies when there's so many other issues? What is so
Yeah.
important about these things people go to watch?
Yeah.
And that's something that we want to touch on. And just to preface, I'm
Oh.
using that word, that just to preface this topic before we go into it, I encourage people to go on YouTube again and type in Tom Cruise 9/11 Oscars. And right after 9/11 happened, so it happened in September, and then in February was the Oscars, and there was a lot of talk about them not doing it. Because what was the
Really?
point? With all that was going on.
Right.
No one wants to, and he gives like a really great speech that's going to touch on a lot of what we're going to talk about today. So I recommend going to watch it. I think it's really powerful. Anyway, so why do you think movies are important?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things that you can break down to it, but I think there's something really like fundamental that we can hit at first. Before talking about movies as their own thing, like let's just talk about the importance of storytelling.
Yeah.
Like that's something that throughout human history has been so important, that this idea of getting around the campfire and telling a story, like whether it's real or not, but just telling an honest story and the importance of that, not just for kids, but the stories that we still are you hold on to from childhood. There are some stories from childhood that stay with you throughout all of your adulthood.
Yeah.
Like we were just talking about the Harry Potter nostalgia, that there are people who hold on to that, and it's this warm feeling for them.
Oh yeah, totally.
It
That
gives
music.
It gives it. There's a real impact that's involved, and storytelling is important. It's a way that we communicate what we care about. It's a way we communicate the things we're afraid of. It's a way we communicate our values, the things, your beliefs and your feelings and history. It's an important thing too, that we can communicate it by telling stories. And I truly believe that film and television are the best ways to tell stories to date.
Yeah.
Nothing else compares. Like a book is great and it's important, but I feel like there are so many things you can put between lines at times that a movie can be so poignant and specific and important that I just think, for me, especially personally, that movies have been the best way to tell a story.
And I also believe, like, coming from a theater background, the reason why I actually do agree with Jake's point is because movies can reach the masses. You get such a platform to tell a story, and especially nowadays with YouTube and with things, the ability to share or tell a story to an audience. There's billions of people on the internet. Billions of people have the potential to watch what you have, and that's why I think film is such a perfect way of telling a story, especially to inspire a change or to shed light on an issue or things like that.
Here we go. I mean, for me personally, I find there are two major sides to it. And I've often said this before, that like when me, you, and Max would go see a movie, Max would be on one side of the spectrum and I'd be on this other side of the spectrum, and you would be like,
I'm in the middle.
In the middle. So for instance, I think that for a lot of people, movies are important because it provides an escape, that it can be a harmless way to find yourself distracted from what's going on, So like, for instance, even watching Band of Brothers, there are these scenes where they're in this horrible place and they're given relief. And what do? They put on a movie for the guys to watch. Even in like Shawshank Redemption, they're in prison, but they put on a movie for them, and they escape. They're in it. There's this look on their faces where nothing else is there. You're in this dark room, and all you can see is what's going on the screen.
And that's another reason why they call the movie industry one of the only recession-proof industries in the States and in Canada.
Because in the worst of times,
no matter what,
still want to go.
No matter what, if jobs fail, if people are missing jobs, people still want that escape, and it's not going anywhere.
No.
Yeah,
that's why
change
and evolve,
it'll
but
change.
This visual storytelling, we're gonna have this.
But that's why during the Depression, movie houses were such a huge thing. Even in the 30s, going to see a
Charlie
film,
Chaplin,
huge escape. Yeah,
and I think that's important because what a movie can do so well is it can communicate an emotion. Like music can do the same thing, but then you take music and you add a visual to it. It heightens it. So you think, like, I think of movies like I think what did I list? Things like Lord of the Rings. It's an escape because you're literally going to another, dimension. You're going to a completely different place. It's the same with Star Wars, with Harry Potter. You're going into this brand new world, and it feels like everything else can disappear. Even if the events in the movie are dark or difficult, it still feels different. And particularly movies that are escapist are movies like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter, where it's good versus evil, and good finds a way to conquer evil. Or you're going through a difficult time, but you find a way to overcome it, like any of the Pixar movies. They provide an escape where, again, the world disappears, and all of a sudden it's just, trying to find your son and find just this family trying to stay together.
Yeah, and
incredible.
And I just because you said Lord of the Rings, in Two Towers, when Sam sees that, in Return of the King, when he sees that star.
Oh yeah.
What does he see in Two Towers that gives him hope?
Well, they're saying when he says, by rights we shouldn't even be here.
Yeah.
And then Frodo says to him, and like, what are we holding on to, Sam?
Yeah.
And he says that there's some good in this world and it's worth fighting for. And he does that incredible speech.
Yeah.
That is, it brings me to tears every time. Like right after, I think it was one of the presidential debates, and I was feeling so down, I posted that on Facebook because it was just this, this feeling of like, no, like we can't lose sight of things here.
Yeah.
And that's the power.
It is the power of storytelling. And that whole notion of good conquering evil. These are stories that have had such an influence on us as children. Like I think about even every Disney movie I was raised on.
Yeah.
Every single one is good versus evil. And guess what? At the end, good always conquers evil. And I know that even in the most dire of circumstances, because I do believe movies and media obviously shape who you are as a person and some of your core values and beliefs. No matter what struggles I may be going through, I can remember that, you know what, there is always still hope, and people keep going forward, and there's such good still left in this world, even on the worst of days.
And it's worth fighting for.
I just want to see what Nate and Daryl said.
Here, I can zoom this in so we can have a better look at.
Nate said, "Don't forget, video games can invoke a level of immersion." Let me just see. Can invoke a level of immersion and escapism that films can't. However, I still believe on as far as story as a whole, they could still get better. So I agree with Jacob. Yeah. So Nate is a friend of ours who commented on this, and Nate, so interesting. I was over at Nate's house last week and I tried VR.
Yeah.
The virtual reality.
It's intense.
It is intense. Holy, like that level of immersion. Like I was in a car in London, and you can see all around you, and I had a gun and a man next to me, and I was shooting at other like things. It's just crazy. I believe that it's immersive, but I don't think it's as much of an escape for me as film.
And I'll only say that it's not because dramatic moments, like let's say you have a cutscene and you're really into it. That cutscene is going to end, and it's going to ask you to pick up that controller again. Or even if while you're playing that game, you have a really intense and cinematic and emotional experience, you're still the one who's being forced to keep it going. Whereas I think what makes movies such a pure storytelling device is that it forces you to sit back and let the director take you. Let the movie guide you straight through it. So it kind of feels like you're being taken somewhere instead of, driving yourself there. And so that's why I think still film can push where video games can't. I've seen some. I find that the video games that I've looked at that do have some of the strongest storied elements are also games where you don't play a lot. They're games where there's a lot of cutscenes, or then those are the elements that feel like really intense storytellings are the parts where you're not in control anymore.
And to speak to Daryl's point, any form of media is escapism: movies, games, music, literature.
Yep.
I disagree, Nate. Music can invoke immersion if it makes you feel X or Y way. Same thing with film. I completely agree, Daryl. And I just want to say that this is our belief that film and TV. Like I know for a lot of people, like I think of Jessica, and I know Daryl would be the same. That music is such like an escape.
Oh yes.
The listening of music but for me personally, mixing that music with such a visual, with such a
enhance it. It can
with
take
such
it
a
to another
story,
level.
and for me, it's all about character.
And
right?
let's not forget, we're not just talking about escapism. We're talking about
why they're important.
Exactly, and why movies and storytelling in general.
But I do agree.
So you can have a Bob Dylan song that has such a great story in it.
Yeah.
Like I just watched a video explaining like All Along the Watchtower, because he just won the Nobel Prize in Literature.
Yeah.
And it was explaining, it's just like, that's incredible that's there, and the way that you can communicate that. Or then like the live version of the Kennedy Center honors Led Zeppelin, the Stairway to Heaven. Oh, I tear up every time. I just tear up every time. But we're talking about a level of escapism in storytelling, particularly in movies.
Yeah.
And I think that they hold an edge for that reason, that it takes you somewhere. If you're watching a movie the way you should, where you're not, clicking away at your phone, or you just have it on one screen and you're doing something else, but where you're in a dark room where it's just you and that screen, I feel like it's like hypnotic. It's in a whole other space for me.
Now that being said, I do want to say something. I am a huge fan of film, but there is some stories that I believe are told more powerfully in a stage setting with a real life person there. And I do believe that. Like I believe War Horse was a lot more powerful on stage than it was on film. I really do believe like certain stories are told better in a certain theatrical way than in film. But that's just like it's also my background.
Yeah.
I do.
But like as escapism goes, I think it's easier to escape into a movie than
yes,
into a play.
yeah.
Play, you got to make a lot more decisions.
Yeah.
You got to decide, I'm not going to be distracted by the fact that they're yelling out unnaturally when they're standing so close
And
together. I'm going to, like those sorts
Yeah,
of
well,
decisions.
it's a sense of disbelief, and
Exactly.
it all depends on the type of person. But I do want to go back to why I think movies are important. I wrote this. This was my first point when me and Jake talked before, and we're like, we should talk about why they're important. And I do believe that movies and film inspire and empower people to make a real change in their own life.
They
I
can.
really,
They
I
totally
really
can.
do believe they can. They can even make a difference in the world and the way they've made a difference in me and the way I view people and see people. Movies can show a side of life that I've never seen before, or I can show what comes to mind all the time when we're talking about why movies are important. First, when I heard that question, the first thing I thought of was Schindler's List.
Yeah.
And I said that movie is so important.
Probably the most important movie ever made.
The-
Can we say that? I mean,
Yeah.
I would say it.
A time in history that is so important for people to not forget and to remember and to see with such graphic images what happened and the atrocities.
And it's not
during that
even,
time.
this is what's important too, is this is where something like an actual narrative, conscious decision driven, just director driven, vision driven kind of narrative piece is better than a documentary, in my opinion, is better than just a news story, is better than even just listening to someone recount the events, because they are able to, with such precision, communicate more than one thing at a time.
Mhm.
They're able to communicate a sight, a sound, and a feeling. They can do all three of those things simultaneously. I think a great example of that is something like, well, other than Schindler's List, is like Slumdog Millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Without having to go to India, you are given not only what India looks like, but this sense of the pace of life of these boys in its cinematography, in its shakiness, in its moving, in its bright colors.
Yeah.
You get this sense of flavor that even though you can't taste or smell, you can imagine it in a way that you couldn't have if it was just a documentary about the slums of India.
Yeah.
And here's a little boy. No,
Yeah.
you're there with them and feeling it in a way that can be so precisely controlled,
Mhm.
like to the point where you probably those movies that have the most control, like the absolute intense, like you look at people like Kubrick who would take multiple takes, or David Fincher, same sort of thing. But the level of detail in something like The Incredibles, where they have to make every single decision so keenly and awarely. And the fact that, like, I think Brad Bird, he described it best once when he said, when you're making a live action film, you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle. With an animated film, you're trying to put the lightning in a bottle 1 volt at a time.
Wow.
Like, you're just trying to find those little elements and just keep those things rolling. So for that reason, I think, it's so good at doing that because it can be so precise and intense.
And I will say, like film and TV, I know has shaped me so much as a person. I believe film really taught me how to truly respect other people. Especially, I will say, watching certain movies and TV have taught me how to really respect like a woman, how to respect
I see what you mean. Yeah.
my like my fiance, how to respect her. I really think movies played an integral role on me in what was really damaging in relationships and what was really wrong, what was the cause of such destruction in relationships, because a lot of movies are built on a relationship and the falling out. And I think that's really actually influenced the way, like, Jessica and I even relate to each other in real life and how we talk about things. And I do think it's heavily because of certain things I've seen in my life that have grown me as a person.
Like, I have 2 examples that nail that perfectly. That idea of, personally, how a movie can shape you.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it important. That you're not escaping your reality anymore, but instead it's informing your reality, which is like my second thing, which is it makes you think.
Yeah.
So like that was the other side. So Max was always like, is it entertaining? Is it fun? And I was always, well, did it make me think? And now, like, I found a way to balance those out way more, but it was always like when I was young, that was so important. So instead of escaping from a bad breakup I had, 500 Days of Summer forced me to really think about what happened.
Yeah.
Like 500 Days of Summer so communicates so well the fact that this guy had no idea that she was terrible for him until he took time to look back and reflect. And I had gone through this breakup, and I remember I was watching it, and then I started chatting with you on Facebook or something saying like, this movie's about me. This is about my life. Because, and I couldn't escape my reality, but it informed my reality that I could start to think about like, what was I doing? What was I thinking? And I think the other great example is when It's a Wonderful Life became my all-time favorite movie. And it was my all-time favorite movie for a long time. Now it's number 2 behind The Departed, but we can get to that. But it was on Christmas Eve at like 3 a.m. Like always, my tradition, my family growing up is we always opened up all of our presents on Christmas Eve. It's like a European, Scandinavian thing. And so we would open up all of our presents and we'd always get a bunch of movies and we'd watch some movies. And I was always the one who'd stay up the latest. So like I'd watch a movie with my brother and we'd all be hanging out or whatever. And people would start going to bed. And then it'd always end up just being me. And so I thought like, okay, like, I don't know if I've ever watched It's a Wonderful Life, like fully through. I've seen bits and pieces. Let's watch it. And it was at a time in my life where I felt like I was at a crossroads. Like, could I go this way with my life or this way with my life? And that movie just shocked me into realizing that every decision I'm making right now is having an impact on my life and the people around me.
Yeah.
So I have to start thinking about the decisions that I'm making. I can't just be on autopilot anymore. And I'm getting all intense because this movie informed my actual life. So I think beyond an escapism and an entertainment, it then became this way that helped me think. And you hit it too, this other point of it helps me recognize the way other people think. Like even some people who are very close to me, who grew up very similar to me, I feel like they're blind to the way a lot of other people think.
Yeah.
And I think that if it weren't for the movies my parents let me watch growing up, like my parents would just like, yeah, okay, sure, like go for it. Like see what comes out of it. Like I remember seeing Munich for the first time. And I just rewatched that recently. And it's a movie about these men who are hunting down terrorists. And by the end of the movie, they realize that they themselves have become terrorists. And this whole idea of good versus evil disappears. And it's like, oh no, we're all just trying to do what we think is right.
Yeah.
And he was like, I would never, ever, ever have come to those sorts of thoughts and things in my life had it not been for movies like that.
And I wanted to just touch on also, It's a Wonderful Life is really important for me. And we are entering in the Christmas season. And I really recommend watching this movie just because that movie for me as well, every year I watch it and it just reiterates the fact of the power of gratitude. And that's been a huge, gracious. That movie is the definition of reminding yourself how much you have to be thankful for every day.
Yeah.
And it can actually change your entire, like, the way you live.
If you let it. If you let those ideas in and you let the movie sort of guide you, it can change your life.
Yeah. And I want to hear from people. So if you're listening to this on SoundCloud or if you're watching it, I want to know what movies that impact on you. I love hearing people's stories of like, this movie came at this point in my life and I just started bawling and it was just a realization moment like, oh my gosh, I need to do this.
Yeah.
I need to do this with my life. And I love, Nate, gonna watch It's a Wonderful Life this holiday. You have to.
You gotta.
You have to.
It's the greatest Christmas movie of all time.
It's beautiful. And
you've never even seen it?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, people.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And
it's so good.
And I do believe movies are really important, especially in this day and age, to really tell stories that I'm all about telling stories that do either make people think about their life or the world we're living in, give them a new perspective on things, or a movie that I love movies that really bring people joy too.
And bring people together. Like if you haven't seen Arrival, part of what Arrival is we need to work this out together. Yeah. And it's a movie like that can communicate that in a way that you would never have expected. You watch that movie, you don't realize that it's not propaganda. Yeah. But it is trying to teach you something. Yep. And it's trying to do it in a way you wouldn't expect. Yeah. And so when you think about an animated movie about two fish, you don't think that by the end of it you want to go call your parents and talk to them and say thank you so much. You don't think about that when it's just what it actually is are two little ones and zeros just floating around in a computer program and just shadows on a wall. And it can have that kind of impact.
And I want to say this comment's so great. Our friend Daryl has cerebral palsy, and he said my left foot for me is like his life for obvious reasons. Legitimately cried the first time I watched it because
It's a powerful movie.
it is, and it's also movies can be so personal.
Yeah.
Someone with a disability seeing how someone else with a disability made such amazing accomplishments in their life and didn't let their disability hold them back.
But even
know, things
seeing
like
his
that.
struggle, like
Yeah,
for instance,
and being like, I'm not alone.
for Daryl to see that, it can be so powerful because he understands, he empathizes with everything that's going on in a real way. Me watching that movie, I can see the experiences that someone going through this is
Help you
experiencing.
understand someone else.
Exactly. And think about it. It's the same shadows on the wall, but we're both learning and experiencing different things.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, movies are
amazing.
they are amazing, and I think they very much so are important, and they're even more. They are so important for what's going on right now. I believe movies and media will be, especially because a lot of the people in that community are very upset with what's going on in their country. Like some of the main people, I think there's going to be a lot of film to influence, to open up people's minds to new ideas, new ways of life. Vote for me this next election. I am Luke Trache. All right, let's move on.
Oh man, that was great though.
Yeah. So we just want to say we each chose 3 movies that are on Netflix right now, or TV shows that we strongly recommend watching.
This is always at the end of every episode, we're going to make recommendations like this.
Yes.
What you guys should be watching on Netflix. And because Netflix is so great and we love it so much, we want to always give you something to look forward to. Because sometimes just scrolling through all those options can be exhausting.
Yeah.
So let us do the work for you.
Yep.
Luke, what are you recommending people should watch on Netflix?
Okay, number 1, I mentioned it before. I really think everyone should watch The Crown. The Crown is a Netflix original, and they have a pretty good track record.
Yeah.
And this is their most expensive one to date. It's cost $100 million to do these episodes, to do these 10 episodes. The look is amazing. You will love it. It is written by Peter Morgan, who did Frost Nixon, The Queen, The Audience, all these amazing historical screenplays, and the director directed stuff like Billy Elliot. A very British feel.
I'm so excited.
Great team. It's about the rise of Queen Elizabeth II, her inauguration, about her father, who is King George, who was in the King's Speech, the Stutterer. Just I loved it. I think people are really gonna love it. And just note how when you watch it, and every single scene in that series, the amount of conflict in each scene. And that's a brilliant writing, I find, is when even watching The Godfather, every scene there's conflict.
This is what I've been saying for years. I've always said story is conflict.
Every single scene is conflict, and in the Crown, every single scene, there is someone fighting, or there's someone not getting something they want. It's brilliant. I recommend watching the documentary 13th.
I've heard about this.
I really recommend watching it. It's about the American prison system and how it's awful, how it's privatized, and it goes way back to see the change and why it is the way it is. And I love like American history, and they take it presidency by presidency, watching how like Nixon's ideas influence and then Kennedy's even and everyone's influenced the way we have what we have right now, and that it needs to change.
That's some intense stuff right there.
And then the last one is I chose a TV show, documentary. The last one is an actual movie. I really recommend watching The Town. It's on Netflix.
That went up recently.
Yeah, so Ben Affleck, it was his second directed movie that he directed, and I think it's a great movie. I think it's a really watchable movie. It's very interesting, really well made. I think
it's thrilling. Bank robbers.
It doesn't take that much. I just think it's a good movie to watch. Easy movie to watch.
I like it a lot.
Yep.
I decided to go sort of a different route, and because I was realizing that there are still a ton of people who love movies who don't think about movies in terms of who directed them or who's made the movies.
Yeah.
So I want to just take time and because I mean, you went through You went through a tear watching whose movies were they?
Tarantino, I watched.
You watched a bunch of Tarantino movies. I've been watching a bunch of this Japanese director Akira Kurosawa getting psyched and ready for Silence.
Which is Martin Scorsese's new movie.
It's gonna be the best. I'm sorry. I'm calling it right now. I'm gonna call it. I think Silence will win Best Picture.
I'm calling it La La Land.
I
Will
think-
win Best Picture.
I think Martin Scorsese is gonna win Best Director, and I think it could win Best Screenplay for Jay Cox.
Dude, the Academy loves movies about making movies.
And I think it's gonna get a bunch of technical awards. I think Emma
La.
Stone could win. I think Emma Stone might win.
Ryan Gosling won't win. Emma Stone.
It's never the best movie
I'm
of the
calling it
year.
right now. Natalie Portman will win Best Actress for Jackie, and I haven't even seen it, but it has Oscars
I haven't
written
even,
all
I haven't
over
even
it.
seen Silence.
Okay, what movies? What
Anyway.
movies? 3.
So I've decided to give you a shot and just search Quentin Tarantino and he has a bunch of movies on Netflix you can watch.
Oh, great.
I made a list: Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill 1 and 2, and Glorious Bastards, and Django Unchained. I would say if it's
I
going to
love
be 3,
all those movies.
if it's going to be 3, watch Kill Bill 1 and 2 because it's unlike anything you've ever seen. And then watching Glorious Bastards because it is so unique. It is a Western
One of the
in
best
World
movies of
War
all
II.
time.
It is one of my all-time favorite movies. I think it's like number
if
19
the
on my
first
list.
15 minutes don't grip you,
I don't know what to
then
do
you have
for
something
you.
wrong with you.
I don't know what to do for you.
And our friend Nate says Black Mirror. I actually don't have no idea what that is.
I haven't watched anything about
but-
Black Mirror.
but,
I've
hey,
heard good things.
Nate recommends Black Mirror, so maybe watch it. We don't know.
I've heard good things. I will say that.
But yes, I do recommend Tarantino. And I now for everyone, just a disclaimer: they are very violent. So if you're someone that doesn't like blood and doesn't like violence, I do not recommend watching those movies because you will not like it. But if
okay.
you-
No, that is
No,
a
it's
great.
true.
No, it's a
Come
great.
on.
It's a great thing to
not
throw in
everyone can watch Kill Bill,
there. I should have said it. I should have mentioned that.
but they're amazing movies. The least violent one would be Pulp Fiction, but that's still pretty violent. That being said, this is our first live stream, and I have enjoyed this so much
This has
more.
been my favorite thing we have ever
Oh, yeah.
done.
This has changed our lives.
This is. I'm enjoying this so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nate and Daryl, for commenting.
Yes.
If you didn't get a chance to see the live stream, comment on the video. This will become just a regular YouTube video you can watch. It's going to be up on SoundCloud. Share it with your friends. Let them know. We'll be giving you guys updates about future live episodes.
Yes.
But this is definitely the way we're going with this.
yeah, Daryl, we do need to do this more.
And we will,
We-
because Jess is in PEI. So
Yeah.
we'll probably do this a lot over the next
we
few
want to have
weeks.
conversations with other movie lovers. Please comment. Tweet at us at the Luke and Jake Movie Podcast. Comment on our stuff on Facebook. We want to know if you disagree with us. That's awesome. We like
Please.
discussion.
Please
We
do.
want discussion. Okay. Awesome. Have a great day. And as we always say, go see a movie.
Tell them we sent you.
But seriously, go see a movie. There's some great ones coming out this weekend. So go see a movie.
Please do.
Signing off.
Oh, man.
That was so much fun. It was fun.
At first, I didn't know how to do it. And then you got to the words and, like, our version. See ya.